Yo, what is going on, everybody? This is Beanie and welcome back to another video. Before we get started, I need to tell you I did the This Week in MLB The Show podcast. It was awesome, guys. It was a great interview. Coop and the Weasel are freaking awesome for letting me do that. It was a lot of fun. Please go and check that out if you haven't already. I'll leave a link to that in the description down below. But today, guys, we are going to be doing the all-time Pirates. I've taken a few days off of doing the all-time series just because there was so much going on. A collab here, a collab there, doing the podcast, streaming, doing all that stuff. But we're back at it with the Pirates. So yeah, let's get started. Okay, we're going to start out with starting pitching, and believe it or not, starting pitching is kind of a strength for the Pirates. You got to start out with a 92 overall Doug Drabek card. He doesn't have the best for nines. Honestly, he probably wouldn't be your top of the rotation guy. The top of your rotation guy would probably be this 92 overall Garrett Cole card. This Garrett Cole card is absolutely fantastic. He doesn't have amazing per nines, but they're solid enough. 149 combined, that's below the threshold that we like. But for the most part, he's really good. He throws hard, has great pitch selection. Very, very good card. You also have this 90 overall Tyler Glasnow card who has fantastic per nines, but his pitch selection is a little subpar. This Francisco Liriano card is an excellent, excellent gold card. Really solid per nines, 160 combined, decent pitch selection, and pretty good stuff. And he has kind of a funky delivery too, and he's left-handed, so that adds a good bit of value to him. And then rounding it off, you have this 86 overall Oliver Perez card who has unbelievable per nines, like elite diamond level per nines. He has solid pitch selection, and his stuff isn't terrible. He doesn't throw super hard, but he throws pretty hard. Hard enough for a left-handed pitcher, and he has great off-speed stuff. So their pitching rotation, honestly, is really solid all the way up and down the rotation. They have 3 diamonds at the top, and then they have 2 really, really solid golds with the really good per nines to round it out. So because of that, I think that this is probably the best part of this team, and I ended up giving them a grade of an 8.0 for the starting pitchers. Okay, moving on to their bullpen. Their bullpen is also very solid at the top. It's not as deep as their starting rotation is, but at the top they have some really interesting options. They have the 93 overall Felipe Rivero, obviously one of the best left-handed relievers in the game. He could end up being the best left-handed reliever in the game if Aroldis Chapman ends up getting downgraded, but he's a really, really solid card to slot in that closer role. And then you have the 87 overall Jason Grilli card, who is awesome. A lot of people tend to underrate this card, but he has one of the best sliders that I've seen in this game. He throws it really slow relative to his fastball. It's a big, big strength for that card. So he's obviously an excellent setup man for them. And then after that, you have to move on to their live series players, and it doesn't get a lot worse with this Joaquin Benoit card. He has excellent per nines, excellent stuff, really solid pitch selection, very, very compelling. Number 3 reliever. After that, though, it starts to get a little bit more dicey. You have this 78 Juan Nicasio, this 76 AJ Schugel that you have to throw in there. And then after that, I thought about putting George Contos on it, but I thought that Daniel Hudson, because Daniel Hudson has just amazing stuff. I thought that he would probably be the better pick for that, even though his per nines aren't that great. And then we need one more lefty to complement Felipe Rivero. So we decided to go with a 72 overall Wade LeBlanc to round out the bullpen. Like I said, this bullpen is not going to be very deep, but if you can get your starters, which their starters are very good, so you could probably go 6-7 innings with the starters and get to the back end of that bullpen, you're going to be fine. It's just in those extended games that you might get beat up a little bit. And because of that, I ended up grading their bullpen at a 6.1. Okay, and now we're probably going to go to the weakest part of the team, which is their lineup and their bench, but it's not terrible. There have definitely been worse teams that I've reviewed when it comes to this, but starting out, you have to start out with the 78 overall Francisco Cervelli card. This is a bronze guy, but honestly, he's not that bad for a bronze catcher. He has really good contact, okay vision. He just doesn't have really any power at all. His defense isn't anything to write home about, but it's not going to kill you. Overall, a pretty solid card, but just not great. And then at first base, I know that this guy doesn't have a primary at first base, but outfield is kind of loaded for this team. So since he has that secondary there, I'm just going to go ahead and slot this 94 overall Willie Stargell at first base, and I think that that's a good idea. I think he'd be great there. At second base, you have to go with this 84 overall Josh Harrison card. Has speed, can play a ton of different positions, hits lefties really well, and hits righties okay too. So overall, pretty good card there. At third base, you kind of have to get a little creative, but you have to go down here to this 76 overall Pedro Alvarez card. He's a left-handed bat that definitely needs a platoon, and he's going to strike out a lot. He's not going to make a ton of solid contact, but when he does versus right-handed pitchers, it's going to go a long way. So that's a pretty valuable card to have in your arsenal. His defense isn't terrible either, so that's also a bonus. But just having a guy that can crush right-handed pitching is a really important thing to have. So I like him at third base. At shortstop, this is where it got a little tricky because I didn't know whether or not I wanted to put this guy on the team because in Diamond Dynasty, he's not listed on the team with them, but technically he is still a part of the Pirates. So I decided to put the 85 overall Jung Ho Kang at shortstop for the Pirates because, first of all, he's a great card. And second of all, I think it's still reasonable considering he is still a part of the Pirates roster, even if they don't have him listed that way in MLB The Show. So I feel okay about putting him there. So that is a really good shortstop, and that honestly it helps their offense from being even more below average than they already are. So that is the infield. Now let's move on to the outfield. At the outfield, it gets a lot better a lot quicker. In left field, I think you have to go with this 99 overall Ralph Kiner. Even though he plays bad defense, he's one of the best offensive cards in the game. This is definitely going to be probably your number 3 or number 4 hitter. He's a great card. And in center field, we're actually going to go with the 87 overall Starling Marte, another guy who has kind of run into some troubles of his own, just like the Jung Ho Kang card. But he's still a great player with a ton of speed, great defense, and is also a very solid hitter too. A very valuable card to have. And then in right field, we had to go with the 95 overall Andrew McCutchen card, an absolute stud in every sense of the word. The only thing that this guy doesn't do extraordinarily well is power versus righties, and even with that, he's probably above average, or to average. He's probably about average. But yeah, so that is going to round out the starting lineup. Now let's look at the bench. Okay, starting off, it starts out pretty good. You have this 85 overall Josh Bell card, and this card is excellent as a bench bat. He's a switch hitter. He can play first base or either one of the corner outfield spots. His defense isn't the best, but he's a really solid hitter. 78, 80, 63, 71, 67 vision. That is very solid, especially when you take into account the fact that he's a switch hitter. So that's a great guy to have on the bench. I really wish that he had like third base as a secondary, because then he'd definitely slot into the starting lineup and it would make everything a lot better for this team. But yeah, so he's a really good bench card. And then you have to go over to the live series players for the rest of the bench cards. I think you have to put this 83 overall Gregory Polanco card for a left-handed outfield bat to help out there. They have a lot of these utility guys, though, too, that can kind of help out and give you a little versatility coming off the bench. And one of them is the 74 overall Adam Frazier card, who hits both lefties and righties pretty effectively and can play almost everywhere in the field, has a little bit of speed, has good defense, a very valuable very valuable card relative to his overall, which is a 74 bronze. He does have a good deal of value that often goes overlooked. And then you have another utility player in Sean Rodriguez, who has very solid power versus righties, and he's not great against lefties, and he doesn't have great contact against righties, but overall, he's just kind of average across the board. He has good defense, and he can play pretty much everywhere. So that does have a lot of value. And then for the fifth and final bench spot, you have to go and you have to get a backup catcher. Unfortunately, it's going to be the 71 overall Chris Stewart card. We just had to get a backup here for the Francisco Cervelli card. I feel like that's what real teams do, so I decided to do that myself. So whenever you take into account the lineup and the bench and all of that, I ended up giving them a below average score just because I had to kind of do it relative to the other teams that I've graded so far. And whenever I put it all together, it did seem like this is going to end up being a below average offense to what I'm going to see moving forward and what I've already done. So I ended up scoring them with a 4.1. And whenever you add all of that up together, that gives them a final score of an 18.2, which so far in the NL Central puts them in second place behind the St. Louis Cardinals, who ended up scoring an 18.5. So they just miss out on being the top team in the NL Central so far. But they still had a really respectable score. They're much higher than a couple teams from the NL West. So overall, the Pirates have a really solid all-time team. Definitely a completely average team would have a score of a 15. So they're definitely an above-average team when it comes to doing this all-time series. So a very solid overall team. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I don't think I'm going to be doing anything else today. I kind of took the early part of the day off so I could watch the eclipse. It wasn't as awesome as I thought it was going to be. It was actually quite disappointing. But that's neither here nor there. Please go and check out This Week in MLB The Show podcast. I love you guys. I will see you guys tomorrow. Peace.